Good morning, good morning. My name is Pastor Adam. We haven't met. I'm glad you're worshiping with us on this fine spring break weekend. It is a good week to continue the Gospel of John. I know we don't do that very often, do we? We're not locked into like a 3-year study through the Gospel of John or anything. Don't worry, we're going to make it. We're in John chapter 7, verses 37 through 52 today. So you can go ahead, open up to there, load up to there, whichever you do. We don't discriminate against you if you load up versus paper. We just think your version's less inspired. Okay? So, and I'm kidding. I have the spiritual gift of sarcasm, which I also believe was the best spiritual gift that Jesus gave the church. Give you a quick recap of where we were last week and continuing into this week. This whole last 3 weeks of going through John 7 has been sort of this continuation of Jesus being at what's known as the Feast of Booths, or the Feast of the Tabernacle. And if you're like, well, what is that? Well, that was one of the 3 feasts that were celebrated by the Jews as sort of ritualistic, ceremonial type of Old Testament practices that they did to be faithful to the Lord. So if you're a faithful Jew, you would go to Jerusalem, you would celebrate the Feast of the Passover, Feast of the Booths, right? You would go and do that. And so they come together and they celebrate for a full week, for 7 days. They take all these sticks and twigs and leaves and they create sort of this tent-like structure that was supposed to be symbolic of their wandering in the wilderness for the 40 years in the book of Exodus, where the Israelites were wandering through the desert. They were being punished for their faithlessness and disobedience to what God told them to do. He said, I will do this. I will deliver you. A great victory over the Canaan. Go to the promised land. They're like, no, they're too big and scary. And it's like, did you not see God? Make a pillar of fire come from the sky against the Egyptians that were probably far larger of an army, and yet they doubted. And so he let them wander into the wilderness for 40 years to let a whole generation of disobedient, faithless, stiff-necked people is what it's, that describes them as. And then once they died off, he allowed their children to go into the promised land. And so you have this Feast of Booths that celebrates their, number one, remembering their Lord's faithfulness to bring them through. There's a celebration at the end of sort of the harvest time of year for grapes and olives was their main sort of, in America we're like corn. We got to get some corn and corn on the cob. Then it's grapes and olives were sort of that, what they had harvested. And so they're coming into that season. And they go into this for 7 days to celebrate in gratitude and thankfulness what the Lord has done. Now, Jesus, he wasn't going to go down to the Feast of Booths. His brothers, his actual half-blooded brothers, right? Because no one else was the son of God. They were the son of Joseph, right? Those ones were. And Mary, obviously. And so they are pestering him, saying, well, if you're such a big deal, if you are supposed to have this awesome following of people, and you want to grow this ministry, and you're an itinerant rabbi, although you're an unlearned man, you didn't go through any rabbinic school, then you should go down to the Feast of Booths, because that's the most popular of the 3 feasts, and you should start teaching and preaching there, so you can get a massive follower base, if you will. Just see that, that Instagram followership, boom, 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 boom. 3-figure, 4-figure, 5-figure, just growing. And Jesus is like, well, this isn't my time. This isn't my time, because the Jews were seeking to kill him, it said, at the beginning of this chapter. The Jews were seeking to kill him because he's claiming to have authority. He's claiming to be, in some sense, they would say, equal with God. And also, he's disagreeing with much